My origin story. So I was born in Santa Clara, California, January 4th, 1998. And I was born to Jacqueline and John. My mom was 18 at the time, and my dad was 22. And they both came from very different worlds, culturally, just literally, like physically. They grew up in two different countries. But the one thing that they had in common was they were so misguided. And so when I was born, these two kids, they were still children. And I feel like I'm giving them excuses right now, and that's what I always do, but they literally didn't know what to do. They were working multiple jobs to make ends meet. My mom sadly had like a really bad addiction to crystal meth. And my dad, he was a chemist, among many other things. And so they were kind of like this Bonnie and Clyde duo, not really thinking about the consequences for me. And soon after they got pregnant with my little brother, I was not even one yet. And then something along the way happened. My dad had a girlfriend and a baby with that girlfriend before my mom, and she had filed for a restraining order against him. My dad had visited them, and a big fight ensued, and eventually my dad got arrested. And because he had so many different cases filed against him, one was for making drugs, two was for carrying illegal firearms, and three was trespassing and not following the restraining order. My dad eventually got deported, and so my mom was left with just me and my brother, not really knowing what to do, not really having a plan. And her addiction got worse because she was even using while she was pregnant with my little brother. And so my little brother was born addicted to crystal meth. And yeah, that's kind of where it all started.
You don't have any memory of those years, do you?
I actually do. And I think it's kind of crazy because it comes to me in flashes. Like in very vulnerable moments, like like a sense will get triggered, and I can remember these moments. And these memories have been validated by the things that a lot of the grown-ups around me have told me. I think my earliest memory of kind of all this trauma was when after my mom and dad broke up. My mom started dating this guy named Michael. And this guy was really bad news. I don't even know how long they dated for, but there was a moment where, and I only know this because family told me, but I remember specific moments during that experience. He had stolen a minivan from off the street, and then he took me, my mom, and my little brother, and I was probably, I was 2 at the time. My brother was 1. And I always had like a very strong personality, even as a kid, I feel like. So the earliest memory I have is me trying to get out of a car seat. Why? Because every night they would sleep in the back of the van, my mom, Michael, and my brother. And I was left alone in a car seat. And then I realized, I put 2 and 2 when another memory came to me when I was much older. There was a moment when I tried to escape from the van as like a 2-year-old, but obviously like I didn't know how to get out of a car seat at that age. So I remember one morning I woke up and I just somehow knew how to unbuckle my car seat. And I remember I was making a run for it because at this point we were missing for a few days. I don't know how long, but my mom's family had already filed for a missing persons report, and so we were actually on the news and everything for kidnapping. And so I ran out of the van, and I can only run so far, right? I'm a baby, I'm a toddler. And then I remember Michael scoops me up. He woke up when I got out of the van. He carried me, and he brought me back to the van. And then there was this big fight between my mom, me, and Michael. Michael was getting really mad because obviously he was about to get caught. My mom had made an excuse because he was just screaming at me, and so she was like, there's some things we need to buy, and we were parked at like a Walmart or something. And she left me and my brother in the van to go buy those things. And when she left me, the next thing I remember, he was screaming at me, telling me to hit my brother in the head with my car seat, to use it to bash his head. And he was telling me that over and over, and I was like, why? No, I'm not going to do that. And he kept on telling me to do that over and over again. And I just remember being so confused because I was like, why do you want me to hit my brother's head? Like, I'm a child. I can't even comprehend what's going on. And my brother's a baby. So I was so lost. I didn't even know what to do. Like right now, I don't even know what a 2-year-old would even think of when you're telling them this. And then the next thing I know, he hits me in the head with the bottom of a gun that he was holding. He hits me in the head. And then next thing I know, my mom's running back to the car. And she had bought batteries for a flashlight. And then a few minutes pass and we hear sirens. And that's when I realized my mom had called the cops. So Michael had pushed my mom out of the car, and I don't remember any of this, but apparently like he had grabbed onto her hair from the window, and my mom's like hair and scalp tore a bit because he started driving the car while holding onto her hair. And then he got arrested. My mom got arrested, and the next memory I have is just being in the back of a cop car with my little brother, and I just remember looking at him and thinking like, what's going on?
Fuck. I can't even imagine what that felt like. Do you feel like there's like parts of it still in your body? Do you feel that pain?
I feel like immense fear. Like I don't feel pain for some reason. I just feel fear of bringing shame to my mom. Even though I know she was the one that did me wrong.
Do you feel like you have to protect her for some reason? Yeah, that makes sense. It was your conditioning. So sorry.
So what happened afterwards, my mom was hospitalized for a while, and then she went straight to prison after, which leaves me and my brother parentless. So for a while, we are staying like with our grandmas and everything, but you know, they're really old, so they're not really in the condition to take on like a 2- and 1-year-old. So we eventually end up in foster care. And I don't remember, but apparently I went through a few homes before I landed in the one that I stayed the longest in. And the one that I stayed the longest in is the one that I have a very vivid memory of. It was with this lady named Melissa, and she was supposedly my mom's like high school friend, best friend. But like that was really far from the truth, apparently. So I ended up staying with her for like 8 months, and I remember in the beginning it was all right. I mean, I didn't feel super happy or excited about the situation, but it was okay. And then eventually she started treating me differently as like a few weeks went on. And it started with one of her son's birthday parties. She had 3 kids, so he was celebrating his birthday and he had classmates over, and I remember her telling me and my brother that we should stay in our room from like this time till this time. And so we were just in our rooms, and then out of nowhere, her other son calls us, not the one that's celebrating his birthday, and me and my brother head out, and once we head out, they all started throwing cupcakes at me and my brother. And then I don't know if I saw that as something bad when I was little. I think in my head I thought it was like similar to a pajama party where we were like having fun, like a food fight. So I didn't really think of it as something that was mean. And then the next memory I have is for a while after that, like they would do like family movie nights once a week or something, and I was the only one that wasn't allowed to participate in family movie nights because I was the family dog. So they would literally call me the family dog, and I would have to sit in like a big cardboard box behind the sofa. And I actually would just sit there like a dog. And then after that, like, she started really abusing me, not just psychologically. The first instance was I was eating spaghetti at the table, and this is why I have a phobia of meatballs now. She forced me to eat a meatball, and I choked. She didn't do anything, she just watched me. And I think she did it on purpose to like make it look like it was an accident. But for some reason, her husband would always step in when it got really bad, but he wouldn't do anything when it wasn't that bad. So he had saved me from choking. And then the next instance was their actual family dog took a shit on the carpet. And she had called me to come clean it up. So I went over, and then I was about to go get like a brush or a toothbrush or something. And when I came back, she was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "I'm cleaning it, like you asked me to." Obviously, like in my little girl voice. And she was like, "No, I want you to use your tongue." And I thought she was kidding until she like grabbed the back of my head and forced me on the carpet. And then when you're in foster care, your social worker does regular checks on you. Like, I think it was at least once a month or something. And I noticed this pattern that, like, she would treat me really badly, but whenever it was about time that the social worker was going to come by, she would all of a sudden treat me really nicely, like extra nicely. Like, she would give me Twizzlers. And so I also grew up having like a weird kind of love for Twizzlers randomly. She would just tell me all the things that I wanted to hear. And so whenever the social worker came by and would ask me questions and everything, I'd lie and I'd say everything was fine, that I was happy, that Melissa was so good to me, that the kids were so good to me, that my conditions were fine. I would lie because I would actually believe that she loved me when she said she loved me, because when you're a kid, that's just what you do. You believe anything that an adult says because you think that they have their best interest for you. And then it got really bad because at one point she just stopped being like a human to me. So there was this one night that we were on our way to this fast food restaurant, and everyone was ordering food from like the drive-thru, and she didn't ask me what I wanted. And so I was like, "Can I please have chicken nuggets?" And she was like, "No, you can't eat." So I started crying in the car, but I would always like silently cry. Like I I wouldn't try to make a scene because I was so scared of what would happen. And then when we got home, as we parked in the garage, everybody went inside. And then she stopped me at the door, the entrance to the house, and she was like, "You can't come in." And I was like, "Why not?" She was like, "You've been a bad girl, so you need to be punished." And so she asked me to sleep in the garage that night. And obviously I was like really scared. It was cold, it was dark, there was no bed. So I kept on banging on the garage door over and over, crying and screaming. And I was like, I'm sorry, please let me in." And then she opened the door and she told me that if I didn't shut up, that she would stuff Justin, my little brother, in the freezer. And so I stayed quiet and I slept there that night. And then after that was a series of her not feeding me and then feeding me. So she would not feed me for days and then all of a sudden feed me a lot of food. And it came to a point where she didn't feed me for like 3 days, I think. And the social worker made a surprise visit. And that was the first time that the social worker had seen the signs of abuse manifest on my body, because my stomach, I was so skinny, but my stomach was so big. It was bloated. And I had bruising. I had a scratch on my face. And yeah, that's when I stopped lying to protect her.
Babe, I'm just gonna come sit with you for a sec, because I... Thank you so much for sharing.
It sounds crazy when I say it out loud. Like, I never really say it in detail like that. I'm sorry. I don't want to cry this much.
Don't apologize.
Like, I want to be so much stronger.
No, you don't have to be strong. Your feelings are so valid. You don't deserve any of them. You don't deserve a single part of that. It is the cruelest shit I've ever heard. How are you feeling?
Good. I actually feel lighter now. Yeah.
Can we all give Liza a round of applause? Some encouragement.
Thank you.
Babe, you're so brave.
Thank you.
I'm like shaking. I can't even imagine how you're feeling. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me the space.
You want to keep going?
Yeah, I'm okay. Yeah.
Do you need anything?
I'm good. Thank you for checking in with me. Yes. Thank you.
Can you tell me about what happened next?
After my whole foster care experience, my dad had gotten word about what happened, and he was still in prison here in America. He was in prison for 3 years before he got deported. And he had called my grandparents, his dad and his stepmom, and basically asking them to adopt me and my little brother. And then my grandparents were immediately like, yes, we want the Soberano babies. There was a bit of a a legal back and forth and everything. In the time being, we were staying with my great-grandma on my mom's side. And so one day I just remember they came by. They did a few visits before completely taking us, which I really appreciated about them, because my grandparents knew that they knew from the get-go that my parents, weren't good for us, but they also knew that we needed to have them in our life. So they didn't want to rip us completely of having our real parents in our life. So they slowly transitioned us into moving in with them. And then when we did, we moved to Visalia, California, which is 3 hours south of the Bay Area. And it was really good. My grandparents took very good care of us. We were living actually a very lavish lifestyle. My grandparents had pretty good jobs. It was the first time that me and my brother were experiencing something like this. But even though that we were in better circumstances and everything, I was obsessed with my mom. My mom was my everything. And it's funny because I was very aware of everything that had happened, but I had never built up this like hatred or resentment towards her. In fact, it was the opposite. Like, I craved and longed to be with her. While we were living with my grandparents, my mom would visit, and eventually she started visiting with, it was like every visit she would bring a new sibling to introduce me to. So yeah, that was kind of my childhood in America that I remember. It was a lot of going back and forth between homes, between cities. I lived in Visalia during the school year. During any type of vacation, my grandparents would allow my mom to borrow me and my brother. So there were times during summer break that we would live with my mom for like 2 months at a time, and I was always very happy. Those were like my happiest childhood memories because I got to spend them with my siblings. I think from a very early age, I really took on the responsibility of, or like the role of being the older sister, and I loved it so much. So yeah, I was always looking for opportunities to be with them, to spend time with them. I was such a sweet and affectionate child, I would say, always sending letters to my mom and everything. And during these times, my mom was actually doing well too, I believe, because I got to see her for myself, that she wasn't on drugs during those times. But who knows, like, I found out a lot of things later, but everything seemed fine. She eventually got married to my stepdad, and they had babies too. And so I thought all was well. But then eventually my grandpa, my Filipino grandpa, got really, really sick. He had type 2 diabetes and had a heart attack that eventually led to open heart surgery. And during these times, my grandparents faced like a very bad financial setback. We ended up having to